All right, guys, this is something we're trying out for the page. It's going to be kind of an overview of the Japanese scene. I got Stephen A here. He's going to go ahead and walk us through a couple of questions, a Q&A kind of segment, and we're going to see how that goes, and we're going to get into the new tour that's going on for GCW and a couple of things, kind of the business stability, champions, kind of like just a lot of what's going on over there that a lot of people over in America might not seem to understand or get through ways that they can find it. So we're going to get into some of that. And so say hi, Steven.
Sorry, had my stuff muted as usual. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Stephen A. I did the Deathmatch newsletter for a while. I did the Deathmatch podcast for a while, and I'm 33. I've been watching death matches since I was like 12. I've always been into Japan. I currently live in Asia, so I go to Japan a lot, and I just, I love Game Changer Wrestling. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so they got the tour coming up. And just, August 22nd, 23rd, they're going to be at Shinkiba. And I just noticed I've been getting like a lot of questions, in my inbox of people who just kind of don't really know how Japan works. Because Japan is just so vastly different. And I've always been into like how the sausage is made. I always read like Bahu's website, who he had tons of still does, and he still everyone knows about Bahu and the way he covers FMW and the big companies from the '90s and even up through now. So I've always been into like the business side of things. I've always been into the Torch and Dave Meltzer, and when I got to Japan, the first time was in 2015 was the first time, and immediately in my head I was like, oh my God, this is so different from how the U.S. works in so many ways. So, Peter, you've started the new group, I guess. There's a bunch of deathmatch groups. I think the Deathmatch Empire, and then, of course, MDK. Those are like the two main ones where everybody congregates to trade clips and news. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to so what happened was I sent Peter a lot of the kind of common questions. So this is like a frequently asked question, and then Peter's pretty knowledgeable, so we'll go back and forth a little bit. But so yeah, Peter, if you want to go into it, what are like the first questions or maybe misconceptions that a lot of people that you see people have about the Japanese scene?
One thing, they don't really understand the touring schedule and things like that. Just I guess it's not like every month per se. I mean, that would be correct to say, right? I mean, like Freedoms, and I mean BJW I think runs every month, but not Freedoms. Freedoms is like every other month or so, right? Something like that.
Well, so I think what you're talking about is you're talking about Kuroken Hall, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the way it works is this. So Japan is the size. It's half the size of California. It's four islands with one main one. There's like Hokkaido, Sapporo. I don't know what the main island is where Tokyo is, but yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah, that sounds right. And so what you've got is these companies, they tour, right? They have a tour where they have to hit up all of these cities. And there's like 30 plus touring, I don't want to say 30, but there's about 20 plus companies in Japan that tour regularly. And the barometer is always going to be their business in Tokyo. So Kuroken Hall, that's like the hall that we all know. And that's like kind of like, I guess you could call it like the Hammerstein Ballroom, if you want to call it that. But it's the building that everybody runs no matter what.
Kind of like the arena in Mexico.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's owned privately. It's actually part of the Tokyo Dome. The Tokyo Dome is actually a baseball stadium, but it's also got a theme park. And Kuroken Hall was actually, I think it opened in the '60s, but it was where they held the first judo tournament ever. So it's got a lot of history, and they actually do a lot of MMA and boxing and kickboxing as well as the wrestling. And sorry if I'm getting off base. I'm trying to just be really thorough. But so Freedoms and Big Japan, as well as DDT and Basara and New Japan and blah, blah, blah. They're going to run all of these shows, but the barometer of business, they're going to run in Yokohama, and they're going to run in Sapporo and Fukuoka and Hiroshima, blah, 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 blah. But the barometer of their business and their biggest business, for the most part, is going to be in Tokyo, and it's going to be Kurokan Hall. Kurokan Hall holds about 1,600 people. In the past, it held more because they didn't enforce the fire codes, but now they enforce the fire codes. So that's why you'll see FMW shows that list at like 2,150 people, and now they sell out with like 1,500. That's why the fire codes.
God.
So, but yeah, so the barometer of the strength of a company is going to be how often do they run that building and what is the attendance month by month, right? So, as you said, Big Japan will run Kurokan Hall 20 times a month, maybe a little more, but I'd say 20 dates. And we'll get into sold shows in a minute. Freedoms only runs Kurokan Hall, I believe, 5 times a year. Or, I'm sorry, Big Japan runs it 20 times a year, and Freedoms will only run Kurokan Hall maybe 5 times a year. They run it in March, May, July, August, November, December. So 6 times. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas Big Japan will run it 20 times, guaranteed, and then they'll have even sold shows. So, for instance, maybe 2 weeks ago, Big Japan ran a show on a Tuesday evening, and they only drew 600 people. And a lot of people on Twitter were like, business is really down. It's like, well, that was a bought show by the Tokyo Dome Corporation. Like, the Tokyo Dome paid Big Japan to run that. They ran a shit card with no main matches, and it was just basically so the Tokyo Dome could promote some other venture. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And stop me if I'm going too far, but I just kind of want to state this, and we can talk about it. So I'm just going to state it up front. The one thing that I kind of want people to kind of understand is that Big Japan and Freedoms are different companies. They don't share much of anything at all. Like, they're completely
absolutely
different companies. And Big Japan is a very larger company in every way,
Well, it's been around a lot longer. It has some more history to it, and it's like it's got a different talent base. Like, there's a couple people, but that's why it was such a big deal, and that's why Masashi Takeda is such a big deal, is because he held both titles simultaneously. He was the first guy to probably ever do that, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep. At the same time, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Right. And so, like, when you see guys like, Kobayashi doesn't do Freedoms. There's a couple people that go back and forth, but it's not particularly common, and it seems like they tend to stick to one, except for like Takeda, who just goes back and forth. But like Makaoka's Freedoms, Fukumoto kind of goes back and forth now, doesn't he?
Yeah, so what it is some of the guys are freelance, so or they work for different companies. So guys like Ueki, Masaya, Takahashi, Ito, Kobayashi, those guys are contracted Big Japan guys. Like, if Big Japan is running a show, they're there. And we'll get into the contracts eventually, because I do want to explain how the contracts work, because I think a lot of people are confused about that as well. And then you have guys like Kasai and Takashi Sasaki and Fukumoto, and they're contracted to Freedoms. And so if Freedoms runs a show, they're there. And then you have guys like Takeda, who is not contracted to anybody. He is an independent wrestler. What that means is when he sells a t-shirt, he keeps 100% of that money. He can work anywhere he wants. He can do anything he wants. And then you have, Isami Kodaka. He is the owner and therefore contracted to Basara. So Yuko Miyamoto, he's contracted to a company called 666, which is run by Onryo, who was in FMW, back in the day.
Yeah, that's that kind of strange one that does like bar shows and all kinds of stuff like that, right?
Yeah, that's a whole other.
That's a whole different kind of business.
Yeah, they do kind of all kinds of crazy stuff. They're partly sponsored by a gay porn magazine.
I remember that.
They do all kinds of stuff. So that's why you have some guys that go back and forth, and then Fukumoto, Big Japan, last year they were running a bunch of tournaments. They had the Deathmatch Tag Tournament, they had the Deathmatch Ikitosen, and they were just like, look, we need another guy. Fukumoto used to wrestle here when he was part of K Dojo, and they made an agreement. You know, Numazawa went, he wrestled for Freedoms for 1 or 2 shows, and Fukumoto. And then when Fukumoto wrestles for Big Japan, Fukumoto, you know, Freedoms in 1 month might run 6 shows. Big Japan will run 20, right?
Yeah, and that's crazy.
So it gets Fukumoto money, and then Freedoms is going to take a little bit of a cut off of his contracted dates. You know, so it worked out for everybody. But as Bahu has kind of gone over, it's not that Big Japan and Freedoms are at war or anything. It's just they are going for the same fans, and they have to differentiate somehow, you know?
Right. They have to have their own certain talents and stuff like that, and people go to one to see one. You know, Kasai's the big draw for them. I didn't realize Takeda was that freelance. I mean, I did, but like, I don't know. He's like the big deal. He's like probably the biggest freelancer, you'd have to say, in the deathmatch world over there, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, him and Shuji Ishikawa, who he recently signed to All Japan, but those 2 dudes were freelance, and, you know, they run, you know, and, you know, Ishikawa was a big deal in All Japan. He still is, and he recently signed a contract with them. But, you know, those 2 dudes were, along with Shigehiro Irie, who, that's like a whole story, but he was a DDT roster member, and then he went freelance, and it kind of floundered for him, but he gave it a shot. But those are like the main I mean, maybe 5 to 10% of wrestlers are freelance. Most everybody belongs to a company in some way.
He's been everywhere. I've seen him in IWA Mid-South and stuff like that. I know he does tours of, he was in the UK a couple months ago with like Ricky Shane Page, and like when I saw him, he's on one of the GCW cards, right?
Yeah, he's going to be on the August 22nd show. Or 23rd, I think. 23rd, yeah.
I think he's on the second one. I saw him and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I hadn't seen him in Japan in anything for a while, because I mean, I just kind of follow Freedoms and whatnot, and BJW. Beyond that, not so much. I'm not really a big DDT guy, but I know kind of like who goes where. So to see him on a GCW card in Japan, I was like, hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll tell you real quick what happened. I don't know the dates. I think this was 2017 maybe. He was the DDT KOD champion, which is like basically their main title, basically. And he was a big deal, you know. And he was one of the guys. I remember I was at one of the New Year's shows where they have, you know, tons of wrestlers on a card. They'll have a 16-person one-night tag tournament. And you can go up and take pictures with 99% of the wrestlers, but Irie was the one guy who was like, nah, you got to give me $5 to take a photo with me. So he was like, you know, he was grooming himself to be a big dude, and he was the DDT main champion. And he did a back-and-forth title change with that belt against Sami Callihan in Cleveland. Like, Sami won it in Cleveland, and then Irie won it right back the next day in, you know, Philly or something. And DDT did not okay that. And he went back to Japan, and they took the title off him, and he basically got fired, basically. And
wow.
That's what happened to Irie, and that's why, like, he totally thought he was going to be king shit and become this, like, freelance superstar and go between companies. And, you know, in Japan, we'll get into it, you know, these are, like, real companies that have makeshift unions. And it's real easy for guys to be like, hey, that dude, yeah, fuck him. Don't book him. And a lot of companies come together and be like, yeah,
it's a loyalty
okay, sure.
thing.
Yeah.
It's not so much like being an independent guy in America. You're loyal to one company usually. I mean, if you're a freelancer, that's a little bit more uncommon. Like, that's why I didn't know about that at all. So I appreciate you letting me know that, because that's pretty cool. I've just seen Shiggy around here a couple of times. I mean, he usually pops around the States for, you know, he tours around here. So that's cool to hear that little story.
Yeah. It was one of those, I was telling somebody else didn't know that. I was telling them, and they were just like, fucking Sami Callihan. Like, I guess that, you know, I don't live in the U.S. and I don't go to U.S. shows, but apparently, you know, it's just, he's kind of known for kind of ruining things every now and then, you know. So
yeah, he stirs the pot. He calls himself the draw and all that, and yeah, he's just one of those guys.
Yeah, it happens. So So one thing I kind of want to explain is the contracts, if that's okay with you.
Oh yeah, for sure, man.
So one of the dudes, I'm going to read a question for you because, so I was talking to
Okay.
one of my friends, and they were like, and we'll get into this stuff later, but they were like, why doesn't Freedom's put the title? Because we were talking about Freedom's business is down, and we'll talk about that more later. But they were like, why don't they put the title on Sakuda? Now, and Sakuda, he's like the Big Japan new breakout young deathmatch wrestler. He just kind of had his breakout year. He was at TOS and everything, and and he's a great wrestler. And I'm like, well, you can't put the title on him because he's a Big Japan contracted guy. And he was like, well, I think that he should go to, and I've heard people say, well, he ought to go to Freedoms because he can be a bigger star, he can shine more, there are less wrestlers in the way, and blah, blah, blah. The thing about it is, when you're a contracted wrestler, like, here's the thing. There's a movie that everybody should try to watch. I think it's called Ringside Diaries. Maybe I can find it later, but it's a Japanese movie about a woman who works for Wrestle One. It was sponsored by Wrestle One and K1 and everything, and it's a pretty cool movie. And they explain how the contract, like when these wrestlers are contracted, like if you follow Twitter and you follow the big Japan Twitter, you'll see that Kobayashi is driving the ring truck, and Frank Atsushi, the ref, is distributing flyers in small cities, and the young boys are doing volunteer cleanup service for a park as part of a PR. When you're contracted to these companies, you are an employee. You go to work at 8. You help clean the clothes. You help clean the ring. You help stock the fucking fridge. You cook food for the older wrestlers. You have, I don't know their, contracts, but you have some form of a health care.
Right.
You have some form of a pension. And then you have money from guaranteed dates that come in. You may even get like housing. When Violento Jack signed a contract, he was a freelancer for Freedoms for a long time. And I believe in 2017, he signed a contract, and that's when you started seeing him on posters.
Right.
They only put contracted guys on posters. Because those are the guaranteed people who are going to be there no matter what. Right? So, for Sakuda to leave Big Japan and go to Freedoms, he would be cutting his potential earnings in half, if that makes sense.
Oh,
He
yeah,
has a
especially
stable
with
job.
Big Japan being bigger.
Yeah. So, 1 second.
You're good.
I have to do this thing. So that's how the contracts work, and that's why, like, for instance, Freedoms will often do a fan fest. Takeda does not go to those because he's not a Freedoms contracted guy. The wrestlers, when they do those fan fests, they're pretty much doing them for free. DDT owns a bar. It's called what the name, Dropkick. And when you go there, the young boys are the bartenders. That's their job. They work for DDT. If DDT owns a restaurant, that's the employee base is going to be their contracted wrestlers. So that's how the contracts work. Like, the way I always put it is, like, these are like real companies. Like, when you're in Tokyo, there's like a decent chance you'll come across a vending machine that sells pop and stuff, and it'll have the Big Japan Duck fucking logo on it. Like, they own, I think, 80 vending machines in Tokyo. Like, they have business interests. They're a large company. There's also bars called Bar 045. It's in Yokohama, and it's kind of co-owned by, like, Freedoms and K-Dojo and some of the other really, really small companies, but they all own a piece of it. So and the young wrestlers, if they have a show in Yokohama, those are the bartenders for that night. After the show, when the show ends at 7, the young wrestlers go and they bartend at this bar, and they all share the profits as this consortium of bar owners. I know I'm getting way off topic, but I just kind of wanted to go over like how these contracts work and what it means to be a contracted wrestler, and why you're not going to see Jun Kasai win the Big Japan titles, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. So So we have more questions to go over. I'm sorry for going off, Peter. So
Oh, you're good, man.
what else is another question that you see like pop up a lot?
That's really the main one, but like a lot of people always ask why isn't Freedoms a bigger deal? And I think you kind of explained they don't really do as many shows. Their talent pool, I mean, it's kind of interesting because like guys like Ciclope and Miedo, they're freelance, I would assume, because they still go all over in Mexico and stuff like that. So they're not under any kind of contract there. So their shows tend to be a little different than the Big Japan shows where it's the same people every time. I feel like Freedoms probably has a couple more freelancers that they use than Big Japan. Was that the correct assessment?
Yeah, I mean, Big Japan has probably 20 contracted wrestlers, and then they have like a lot. You know, they partner with DDT a lot. They partner with All Japan a lot. They partner with like smaller companies like 666. So at any given moment, they have a talent pool of probably 40 guys that they can just grab. You know, 20 main guys and another 20 guys that they can just sprinkle in. So they can fill out a 8-match card or a 6-match card. With Freedoms, they only have 13 contracted guys. And then what they do is as they travel, you know, there are guys who are native to Osaka who will, you know, if they go to Osaka, they'll call on these 3 guys. If they go to Fukushima, they call on these 5 guys. So with Freedoms, you know, I see people a lot of times say, oh, they shouldn't have taken the title off of Takeda. They had to. I mean, Takeda needed a break. I don't know how else to put it. Or they'll say they should put it on this guy or that guy. It's like they don't have a deep talent roster. Like the only guys who could really carry the Freedoms title is like Kasai, Jack, and then Takeda. That's it. Like you can't put the title on just name any guy and expect to go to Fukushima and draw 800 people. You can't put it on...
and expect to consistently get that.
Yeah. Yeah, like, these guys, like, there was a guy I know, really cool guy, and he was outlining that, and he's really into Joshi, and he was outlining that all of these, you know, there's Stardom and TJPW and Marvelous and a bunch of, and Seedling and Gato Move and blah, blah, blah. And all of the Joshi companies are, Stardom is like a medium company, but the rest of them are all pretty small. And he's like, they should all partner up and do a 3-month series at least to an ultimate tournament to crown the Ultimate Woman Champion. And I'm just like, bro, then what? Then you destroy
exactly.
business.
Then what? Then you have no momentum on anybody else. And that's kind of what I notice about places like Japan, and people do always say, hey, why don't they bring this person? Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? Well, I mean, you could try and put it on a foreigner. That's not the best idea. If they decide not to come back with your title, not to mention that they're not there consistently month by month unless you get them under contract. Like Violento Jack, he held the King of Freedom's title for a while, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But like guys like Makaoka and stuff like that, they're there every month. You know, they're gonna be there. You can't just, I don't know, and especially if it's Freedoms where they're a little bit smaller, they don't have the money that BJW does, so they're not gonna be getting paid exactly what they want. And maybe they will be if they're the right. Like I'm kind of surprised like guys like Ciclope and Miedo aren't over there a little bit more consistently, but with them being so active in Mexico and being in AAA and stuff, I'm sure they don't want to. I'm sure they want to come back to GCW too.
Kids. They got kids.
Yeah, right.
You know? Like,
right.
That's the thing. You know, Jack, he's not married. He doesn't have kids. Like, Miedo and Ciclope, they both got kids. They have a life down there. They can't just pick up and leave. And then you have to think about if you let's just pretend for fun that they want to put the title on Schlack. Well, now you have to get a house for this guy. You have to provide, you know, money for him to be able to get taxis, to eat. You need to. He has to become a contracted wrestler. It's like a company
to make
hiring...
it worth his while, because he's losing these other bookings and stuff like that. So you have to make it worth his while and put him up, and yeah, it's just not that easy.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why, like, you know, people. There was a Jerry Lawler, some guy. You know, he was like, "Why did Jerry Lawler always have the title in fucking Memphis?" And he was like, "Because he knew he was going to be at the show every single week." You know,
Right.
is Eddie Gilbert going to go on a bender and disappear for a month? Who knows? But Jerry Lawler is going to be there every month, you know, or every week. So when they put the title on Kasai, they had to put it on somebody, and it was either Kasai or Jack. That was like the only two options, you know what I mean? And Kasai, you know, he knows he's going to be there. He's the owner of the company. He knows he's going to be there. So that's why they want to put the title on him. But as we've seen, you know, the business for Freedoms is down. Like, it's down a lot. It's down by probably a third from last year at the moment, which goes into the popularity of some of these guys. You know, Kasai is 43, I think.
Yeah.
You know, his biggest year was probably 2012, 13. There was one year where he got ranked the 9th most popular wrestler in the country. And this year he's like 70. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I see a lot of people, you know, sometimes people will say, is Matsunaga still a big deal? To which I say, is Kevin Nash still a big deal? You know, Kevin Nash does a million meet and greets, a million Comic-Cons. Eventually everyone saw him. And, you know, Onita, when Onita does a show and he's still wrestling, he only draws 300 people because everyone's seen Onita. Everyone's got photos with him and autographs with him, and they've seen him blow up and spit water and do his thing. Like, he's old new. Like, the Japanese fans, they've only got so much attention and so much money and so much time. I mean, as you know, there's anywhere from 20 to 30 companies that are going to run Tokyo in 1 month. How and fans have to think, yeah.
I think so many shows, too, on top of that. Because, I mean, just thinking about that, like you said, it's half the size of California. There's 20 companies running pretty much almost weekly. I mean, I don't know how many of them are weekly, but, you know, at least once a month, usually, most of those companies are running. And so it's hard to not get stale like that, especially with, and there's probably not necessarily a lack of young talent, but with how Japan is, it's not really like America. You have one breakout performance and you're made. You know, like I used to hear you talk about Sakuda, for example. He was basically BJW's whipping boy. He kind of, I'm not going to say he is, but...
No, he is. I mean, he hasn't had a single win yet.
Really?
No, I mean,
I remember he was challenging for the Freedoms title, but, like, of course, that's a different company. Like, yeah, BJW, it's weird like that. It's a loyalty thing, it feels like.
Yeah, and real quick, I want to say that really quickly. The reason why Sakuda had the 2 matches against Kasai was literally like a joint favor between both companies. They were like, hey, here's our young boy. It'll make him bigger. It helped Freedoms pop a Shinkiba house. I mean, they drew their biggest Shinkiba house maybe, you know, in years, if not ever. They drew a total absolute sellout for it. And no one thought he was going to win. It's not like in America where Brock Lesnar debuts and 4 months later he's the world champion. Like, Sakuda still... He only started doing singles matches last year, and he still hasn't won. No, I think it was this year.
Right.
It was this year. And he still has not won a big match. Like, he has not... I don't think he has a singles deathmatch win yet. And it's going to be like that for a long time, you know? That's just how it is. Kasai was getting beat by the legends for 2 or 3 years before he became the Crazy Monkey and started gaining steam. It's just how it is. You know, like, that's the style that they have because... You know, Kobayashi's been there for 25 years. He's not going to give up his, you know, his spot. You know, like, and the company isn't going to make him give up that spot. So it's just
there would be nothing really for them to gain. It'd just be pushing somebody to it's different, and it's almost like a Roman Reigns situation where if you try to do that, everybody's just gonna. It's gonna hurt your business. It's gonna hurt that guy's popularity. They're just not going to be into it. Like, they go through tag team and 6-man tag ranks forever. And that's what a lot of those shows kind of consist of to keep things as non-stale as possible, or as fresh as possible, excuse me. It's just like that because you can't just book singles matches all the time because eventually you're going to run out of big matches to make, and I think that's kind of where some of it's even at now, especially Freedoms, with them not having as much contracted talent, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, they're running, they've had Kasai face off against the younger guys. They had him face off against, Kamui, which Kamui, so that was in Osaka. Kamui's on Osaka native, so they popped a little bit of a house. Normally they'll draw 400 for this show. They drew 650. But no one takes Kamui seriously. He's been he was in fucking WMF and he's never been anything big. He's just there. It would be like if I'm trying to think of a guy, Dolph Ziggler challenge. It's like, oh, okay, he's been around. He's not going to win, but okay, that's fun.
Yeah, he's not going to win, but he's in there. Like they had him do a couple months ago. Yeah. Yeah,
and then there's the other guy, Toru Segura. He's been in Freedoms forever. He's been an upper mid-carder. He was the tag champion with Mammoth Sasaki for forever. And now with Masauka out and the business down, he stepped up and now he's doing death matches, which I almost don't want him to be doing because he's such a nice, handsome guy. And now he's going to be covered in scars in another year. But, I saw someone... people online talking, oh, he's the future, da-da-da, and they drew 500 people to Kurokan Hall, and that's embarrassingly low. I mean, that's that same show last year
like a third of what that venue holds.
Yeah, I mean, that's so low, and it's just because nobody buys him at that level, Like, nobody buys him at that level. I mean, he's a great wrestler and people like him, but it would be like if tomorrow... See, I don't watch WWE at all, but it would be like if tomorrow Sami Zayn challenged for the world title against Lesnar. It would be like, well, he's not going to win or anything.
Well, it's gonna pop a couple smarks, but that's it,
Exactly,
and that's just the difference between American and Japanese fans. I feel like American fans get... like they're a little more entitled, I guess. They don't understand the nature of the business and that you got to build some of these guys up because it's a lot easier to blow up over here. And I don't know, maybe that's just clips, maybe that's just somebody just goes viral and stuff like that, and everybody wants them to win all of a sudden. But like it's the same thing with like Schlack and Crane. Everybody always wants them to win, and they constantly bitch about them not winning. And it's like, they're not going to win every time. You got to build them up. Like, I don't know. That's where GCW kind of breaks that mold, though. Like, for example, Alex Colon. Alex Colon loses, like, 3 matches in a row, but he's still in the world title, and people are still behind it because he's just so damn good. That doesn't happen in Japan. Like, you're not going to, like, or if you do, it's just a filler thing, and it's like, he's just kind of there, and he's not going to win. Where with Colon, even though he had lost, you're like, man, he's so damn good, he might still win this. There's just a big difference there.
Well, yeah, it's just different, and we could talk about the differences for days. I think it's just people... like, as fake as it is, as many times you see someone put a gun up someone's ass, and as goofy as it gets over there, to them, like, when fucking, what's his name? Sakamoto, when that dude comes out, it's real. This is a real fight, and they're going to fight for real. I mean? Like, there's still those moments. The main event, it's still real in that sense. You're never going to see a guy lose three big main event. I mean, there was if you go on and look, the G1 is a big deal because it's the only time that those dudes fight so many fucking singles matches. I mean, in 1 year, if you take out the G1, Naito might wrestle 6 singles matches per year outside of the G1. They don't do a lot of singles matches. And as you said, it keeps things fresh and it makes it really easy. It's like boxing where guys might only box 3 times per year. So it's really easy to have the rankings. It's really easy to have like a logical progression up and down the ladder in that way.
Yeah, where in America somebody can just jump up out of nowhere just because like fans start getting behind them and stuff.
If Alex Zane challenged Gage, no one would bat an eye. They'd be like, of course he should. He's got the momentum, and yeah, that'll be a great match, because that's just how, that's how it works over here. Like, people just want to see the experience. Right. People,
Right. No, I totally get that. Like, Oren Veit comes to mind. He's somebody who kind of blew up last year.
Eric Ryan or Invite, those guys, absolutely, yeah.
Well, Eric Ryan's actually been around for a while. Eric Ryan's a weird case because he's been in indies, like he's from Beyond and all this stuff because he's from Ohio, which that's
Yeah.
kind of like a haven around here. But he has a decent little history. He's got history back in CZW a few years back. He was in Prince of the Death matches and stuff like that. But he kind of came out of nowhere, but he'd been around a while. Like it was weird. Or Vite, it was like, man, he's probably only been around 2 or 3 years now, but so that picture of him with the white tights and looking like he's got just red all the way down his back, all the way down his tights, that just blew up. And now he's just like a deathmatch superstar over here. That just doesn't happen. So what would you say about like the drying up of talent over there? Like what do you think? How would you explain that?
Well, it's funny. It's like the total opposite. I remember when Big Japan was having the resurgence in 2006, 5-ish, when they had Numazawa and Ito and Kasai and Kobayashi, and they had a bunch of other guys that were kind of like ancillary, and and they were having this like resurgence of new talent. That's when CZW was drying up. That's when the American scene, when Drake left and Gage left, and you had, just this natural drying up. It's funny how it's like flipped. It just happens sometimes. It's just the ebb and flow where sometimes you just dry up and there's not enough trainees. I mean, you can't control the amount of guys knocking on the door who want to, A, become a wrestler, and B, jump through glass. It's just not going to be a consistent basis. So, yeah, I mean, and then you also have the Freedom Split, where you have overnight Kasai and Takashi Sasaki, who were major players in Big Japan, they were gone. So now you have the talent pool split in half, and it just kind of, and now the Roosters have come home to roost, where I always say, I think Sakuda is like, okay, Masaoka and Sakuda are the last two breakout stars I can think of in a long time. Ueki is not a breakout star. Masaya Takahashi, as much as they try to like really push him, he's not a breakout star. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of how it is. But now you have America exploding. Now you have Vite and Crane and Schlack and Ryan, and then you have the legends like Tremont and Gage and all these guys. It's just kind of how things happen. But yeah, Japan is like, they're thirsty for new guys, and you can see, Big Japan, they're having a lot of their big, okay, here's the thing that needs to be said, especially now that we can see it. With Big Japan, not so much because they have so much other stuff going on. The strong division in Big Japan is a big deal. They get a lot of mainstream coverage for those strong style matches with Sakamoto and Ishikawa and Okabayashi and the All Japan guys. Like, that's a big deal over there, right? But last year, Takeda's title reigns were a big deal, especially for Freedoms. Excuse me. Like, he was a real draw. He was legitimately selling out Kuroken Hall back-to-back for both companies in the same 2-week span, doing main event death matches, which that hadn't been done in a long, long time. And I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry, I don't get to talk about this shit too often. But
You're good. I get you.
Yeah. So it's just how it is, and now we're really in a big lull. Isami Kodaka as the deathmatch champion. It's fine. It's not lighting the world on fire. It would be akin to some stalwart guy, Sheamus winning the WWE title, be like, oh, okay, that guy again. Or John Cena or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, him again. Okay, cool, whatever. It's just he's been around for so long that it's not, he's not like a pop the building kind of guy or anything, if that makes sense. So
right.
So yeah, the talent pool is drying up, and you can see, like, when I go over, I've made a lot of friends. The Japanese are just the nicest people in the world, and they all want to party after, and they love talking, because a lot of these guys have been watching this stuff for 20 years, just like me and you, and we're all a big family. And we talk about this. They're like, yeah, I've seen Kasai versus Jack like 5 times now. You know, it would be like, imagine if Gage and Tremont wrestled every 3 months. Eventually, you would be like, yeah, I kind of saw that shit. You know,
Right.
everything dries up eventually. And so, and especially when you're touring the same cities over and over. It'd be one thing if you have Gage versus Tremont in L.A., Chicago, Jersey, Florida. But imagine if they just run it in Jersey every 4 months. Eventually, be like, I saw that already. You know?
Right. Somewhat like GCW does with Schlack and Crane, where that match has been made quite a few times at this point. But they did it in L.A., they did it in probably Chicago. I'm not sure if they did it in Chicago, but I know they've done it in Jersey. I know it's been in ICW. Like, that's the difference, is that those people haven't seen that match.
Yeah.
520, or seen them in the same ring 520 times in the same city all the time.
It's a bit of like I always think of Crane and Schlack as like a bit of a traveling circus act. It's like the bearded lady. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you see it twice, it's not so cool, but the first time you see it, it's the coolest thing you've ever seen in your life. So, yeah, you want to take it around the horn. It's like an old school thing. And that's something that GCW, we'll get into GCW in a minute, but a long time ago, I was talking to Brett, and I was like, it was right when they were starting to run other cities a little bit, and I'm like, what's the goal? And he was like, to create a loop where we don't burn out Jersey. If we run Jersey every 5 weeks, we're going to burn them out and we're going to run out of matches. But if we can start running a loop where we're only running Jersey every 10 weeks, then people, they get excited. It's easier to bring in new matches. It's easier to be a novelty. And then you can go to LA and Chicago and New Orleans and try out other things and da-da-da. And, you know, and then you can see, you know, they brought in Takeda to Jersey. The second time, they brought him into Chicago. You know, they want to, or Sasuke, they brought him into the WrestleMania in New Orleans. Then they brought him to LA. Now they bring him to Jersey, so everyone can get their photos and see the legend and experience, you know, these different guys. So you create a loop, and now Tokyo is added to that loop. It seems like, you know, it's great business. Yeah.
I mean, because the shows are both sold out, if I'm remembering correctly, and that's just awesome in itself. Never having been there, they have that much hype behind them that they're just going into a different country and they're set already. That's just super cool. And the cards are, the cards are fantastic. It's crazy. Like I think you said the other day, probably the best, the most, I guess you could say, consistent, great, top-level deathmatch talent in one place in almost ever, if not ever.
I'm sure there's an IWA King of the Deathmatch from 2003 or a TOD that ranks up there, but this is like, when you really look at these cards, let me go over one last note, and then we'll get into the cards, and we'll kind of preview the cards. I know I've been yakking a lot, but I just kind of want to, like, inform people a little bit. I want to say something, and before this, I want to preface, I am working with Game Changer Wrestling. I did, I'm just helping organize touring and helping, track down a few things. And I'm the first guy to say it. I'm a fan of the company. When they were getting big in 2015 or whatever, 16 or whatever, I wasn't watching wrestling. CZW sucked. Japan was stagnant, but I had my favorites. I would watch YouTube clips and the main events and stuff, but I didn't watch WWE. I didn't watch Impact. I didn't watch fucking Ring of Honor. I wasn't watching wrestling, and Game Changer Wrestling got me back into wrestling completely, without a doubt. So I'm a fan of the company. So sorry if this sounds like a bit of a infomercial or whatever, but I just want to say that up front. I am working with them and just trying to do tour stuff. And when I first went to Japan, here's the thing. We watch Japanese wrestling. We upload shit on Facebook, we watch stuff on YouTube, we bootleg stuff. Let's be real, no one's paying for this stuff. No one's paying for Big Japan Core, no one's importing Freedom's DVDs. We're watching this bootleg, basically illegal, right? Let's be real, right? So,
oh yeah.
In Japan, that is the biggest no-no of all time. You don't do that. It's stealing. It's absolutely stealing. And so the way I explained it, so the way we hooked up was I just started doing my little newsletter for fun. I was on a flight back from Japan after a show, and I had, I have 6 hours to kill, so I just opened my computer and started writing, and I hooked up with and Brett Lauderdale just kind of started asking me this and that. And I was like, one thing that became apparent to me is when it came to death matches in Japan at that time in 2015, 16, CZW was still the deathmatch name. And you would go to a big Japan show and you would see DVDs of Tournament of Death from 2011, you know, or you would see CZW DVDs that were pre-Skate Zone, you know what I mean? And there's not a big industry, I mean, there's not a lot of like official coverage of like Japanese death matches in America. Dave Meltzer and Ryan Satin aren't covering Freedoms or anything. But we definitely get a lot of news, and but in Japan, it's just a lot harder to follow. It's harder to get results. It's harder to get the promos translated. It's harder to follow it. It's just really hard to follow it. And when I was doing my newsletter, half my audience was the fans from Japan translating the articles, and they were like, this is the only way that we get this info. When I went over it, they had no idea who Schlack was and Marcus Gray. They had no clue that Nick Gage got out of prison. They didn't know, you know? And the way I put it is, if you don't put it in their hands, they don't know about it. They have no idea. And so I came up with the idea, I mean, so I had friends, and I would send them YouTube links of GCW shows, bootlegs, I'll be honest, because I wanted to spread the word. And they would immediately tell me, they're like, is this an official link from the company? I'm like, well, no. And they're like, oh, I can't watch this. I'm like, okay. So I was talking to Brett, and, you know, they've always, they're GCW. They want to run a show on the moon one day. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he was like, how do we penetrate that market? And I was like, you got to put a DVD in their hand. And he's like, are people going to buy a DVD? So I'm like, look, I live in China. I'm going to a show in a month. Why don't we make a sampler? I can print DVDs here in China for 30 cents each. Why don't we make a sampler? Yeah, China's awesome in that way. It's really cheap. So I'm like, why don't we print a sampler DVD? And we got together and we did it. And this was, Tokyo Deathmatch, Bloody Christmas 2017, maybe, something like that. 2018, I don't know. I lose track of time and shit. I think it was 2018. This was about 9 months ago. And even then, when I put it in people's hands, when I gave it to them, I had a lot of people ask me, is this an official copy? And I had to be like, yeah, it is. Don't worry. This is totally official. I was showing them, look, here's Kikutaro tweeting about it. This is an official DVD. And they're like, okay, thank you. Great. And the first time, so I did this 3 times. The first time, I'll be dead honest, like, Freedoms, it wasn't orderly. Freedoms was like, look, just plant your box down wherever you're not in people's way and hand them out. And they really didn't care. And I had once, I mean, I can't even explain it because, you know, Takeda had went over and there was starting to be this little buzz and people were starting to understand, but not many people had seen it. They had seen photos or seen it on Twitter, but not many people had seen it. And I can't explain to you those first 5 people that got the first samplers. Within a minute, I had a longer line than the fucking wrestlers. And those DVDs were gone. We gave away 500 of them. I came back in February with 200 more. Again, they were gone. I was seeing people at shows the day before, like a 0-1 show, and people were coming up to me like, excuse me, Steve Sambo, do you have a DVD? I never got one. Like, it became this little thing. And even in May, we made a second volume. And again, it was a big hit, man. People were just into it. And that's when the rumbling started. People going, when are you guys going to come over? We want to see Schlack. We want to see Crane. We want to see these guys. And that's when GCW pulled the trigger. You know, that's when Kasai was coming in. That's when, and they just pulled the trigger on those dates. And, you know, it was the right time. And now people know. People have seen it. Now you have people buying the DVDs from the Freebird store, which is the official Smart Mark video retailer in Tokyo. You know, you have this... Yeah, I mean, you know, and the owner, Taka, he's a great, great friend of mine, one of the great friends of mine who he's helping. You know, I mean, organizing these shows is a big job, and we have a big team, and it's been a year in the making, and I'm just like, I know I sound like a 5-year-old, but what I always say is this is like 13-year-old Steve would be really happy with 33-year-old Steve right now. So that's the story of like the GCW gaining momentum and gaining popularity in Japan. And so they announced the shows in February. When I went last Christmas, people knew, I think some of the wrestlers had kind of like been whispering, and I went to some bar events with like 30 hardcore fans, and I would have like 3 or 4 guys come up and whisper to me, hey, GCW's coming to Tokyo? I'm like, I don't know, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I've heard the same whispers that you've heard. I don't know. And it just grew and grew and grew. When the shows were announced, they were announced for Shinkiba, which is a smaller venue. It holds 410 max with about 310 seats. They priced the tickets very high. Front row tickets are about $95, which a Freedom show will sell those same tickets for like $55. So they are, the tickets were well above board. And the first day they actually sold out. What happened was they sold about 60% of the tickets on the first day, and the other 40% were put into the checkout box, and people didn't hit purchase. But that's why for the first like 5 or 6 days, it was looking like it would sell out for 1 hour, and then the tickets would pop back up. And I was getting people on Twitter like telling me like, I just got to wait for payday. I'm just trying to keep my ticket reserved in the box, and I can't wait to go, and blah, blah. And after 5 or 6 days, those 620 tickets were sold out.
Yeah, I remember it was like a week. That was crazy.
Yeah. And no card announced, no talent announced. Nobody knows what the shows are going to be, but they knew these shows were going to be special. And GCW, they run fucking 100 shows, and they have a lot to do, and they only announced the shows or the cards about a week ago. So I want to ask you, I know I've been gabbing, and I'm sorry, Peter, I'm not, but I just want to get everything out of the way first, But what, like, as someone in America who's kind of watching it from the other side, what do these shows mean to you, and what do you get out of all of this?
I think it's a really cool thing to do, and I don't think it's something that's necessarily been done by a company like that. I mean, CZW would send people over there. I don't know if CZW ran in Japan, but I know that they would send little groups over. But to have that kind of momentum so far away, I mean, because it's not like that with. I mean, people watch Japan, Japanese death matches, but like you said, they just find them on YouTube and do whatever. But for them to, it's like they were rabid. And they wanted GCW. And that's kind of how it is in America, too. GCW has such a role going that it's just, it's crazy. Like they said when they started bringing everybody out that was going to go, it's awesome to see that they've reached all the way over there, and that they're going to go and they're going to blow these people's mind. And they're going to, I mean, I don't care what happens. They're going to blow people's minds. They're going to go back. They're going to be able to go back. And they're going to keep bringing, hopefully, new people over there. And even if they don't, they're not going to be over there all the time. Even the people that they have on these cards, like, it's insane. I don't even have the lineup in front of me. I could probably bring it up on my phone, but I remember most of it. But it's, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just so cool.
Yeah, I mean, the only company that did, so when Ring of Honor goes over, they co-promote, which Ring of Honor goes over twice a year, I think. And what they do is they co-promote with New Japan. That means it's a Ring of Honor co-promoted show, but New Japan is providing the ring. New Japan is providing most of the wrestlers. New Japan is providing blah, 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 blah. And Fight Club Pro, they had a show in January in Tokyo at Kurokan Hall, January 7th. And I was really critical of this because I was like, look, I knew from working on this project, I was like, nobody knows who Jimmy Havoc is. No one knows who Ricky Shane Page or the Fight Club people are. I don't even know. You know, there's like some Australian tag team and all this type of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know exactly who all is there. I mean, I knew Ricky Shane, and I think they had like Drew Parker and some other people there.
Yeah.
They had some pretty decent people, but it was like, I remember you talking about it. They didn't really sell a whole lot, right? If I'm not mistaken.
They listed 700 sold tickets in Kuroken Hall. And Kuroken Hall is an expensive building to run. Very expensive.
Right.
And they and they were co-promoting it with Sendai Girls, which is co-owned by Mako Satomura, who was coming over to Fight Club Pro. So it was like a I scratch your back, you scratch my back kind of thing. But I was really critical, where I was like, they're not promoting these guys. Nobody knows who they are. They aren't uploading stuff to YouTube. They aren't, you know, and I was like, these are going to bomb. And I remember I was in Tokyo when that show was, you know, during that 2-week period, because it's right after the Tokyo Dome. And during the Tokyo Dome week, there's a lot of foreigners. Thousands of foreigners go to Tokyo. Like, you'll see a lot of white and black people you'll see a lot of non-Japanese people there. People from China and Taiwan and America and Canada, blah, blah, blah. So it was a perfect time for them to run, and I had all these, we'll call them marks, you know, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I had all these, like, you know, super fans telling me, oh, Fight Club Pro is this amazing company, and they're going to do great, and I'm telling people, I'm like, dude, they're not going to sell shit, and they sold 700 tickets, and everyone who went told me, like, look, they really sold about 500, and about half the crowd was fucking foreigners. You know what I mean? So you're looking at about 300 Japanese people during the biggest wrestling week of the year who went to Fight Club Pro to see Jimmy Havoc and Ricky Shane Page and Drew Parker and, you know, all of this stuff. You know, they didn't draw. They just didn't draw a lot, and that was with co-promoting with a mainstream company. Not, well, you know, a mainstream-ish company. What GCW is doing, they're not co-promoting with anybody. You know, if you just, you know, if you know how to read the business tracking, you know, the Ticketmaster is being handled by the Freedom's office and stuff, and the ring is provided by the building, which the building has so many shows, they have their own ring and stuff. But there's only 3 Freedom's contracted guys on it. They have contracted guys from Big Japan, from Freedom's. They have Great Sasuke on there. They have Drew Parker on there. They have Freelance guys. They have Isami Kodaka on there, like this, and then they have their 9 GCW guys, and then they have Kikutaro and all, you know, these branded guys. These guys, they are promoting their own show. They're not, like, Freedom's is not helping sell the like, if you go to a Freedom show, there's not a poster for this show up, if that makes sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're not helping them sell these tickets. GCW sold these tickets, and they're keeping the money from these tickets, you know?
And that's awesome.
It's fucking amazing. I mean, as you said,
it really is.
Really done this. I mean, CZW, all they ever did was they would send over a tour of anywhere from 3 to 6 guys, and they would just tour with Big Japan or 01 or something, but they never ran their own shows and rented their own buildings. So,
yeah, that's pretty nuts to me. I mean, it's really cool, and then they're stacking it. They're not pulling any punches. They're going to a different country. They already sold out, and they're not pulling anything. There's not filler on either one of those cards. I don't even know if the second one's done yet. I'd assume it probably is. They announced, like, what, 5 matches for each card, about something like that.
5 for night. Well, we can go over that. So real quick, Japanese cards generally are like 6 matches. What it is when they rent the building, they only have a window. I don't know what the window is, 4.5 or 5 hours, and that includes setting up the ring, setting up this, tearing down the ring, intermission, and you have to have intermission. There are certain things about Japanese wrestling that you have to do. And so the window for the show is only like 2.5 hours. So you can only, and plus you have to swap out gimmicks and you have to set up stuff.
Yeah.
So you can really only get like 6 matches generally anyway. So yeah, they have 5 matches on the first night and 6 on the second. If you want to go over the cards, we can go over the cards real quick, and you can just give me your thoughts on it, on all of it. if you want.
If you have it all up, go ahead and start listing them off, and we'll talk about them. I have some of them up. I didn't post all of them on the page, but I posted most of them. So
Yeah, sure. So
or the ones that are main death matches.
So yeah, so August 22nd, which is a Thursday, just saying, it's a Thursday. It's a school night, and they sold it. And by the way, they're going to be selling like standing room tickets. I mean, my Twitter is full of people asking, "I didn't get a ticket. Can I still get in the show?" I'm like, "There's going to be standing room. Don't worry." So they're going to sell even more tickets to this fucking thing, So
and that's awesome.
It's fucking awesome, man. Like, it's super cool. Because I love wrestling. I've loved wrestling my whole life, and here we are. So they got Tony Deppen versus Sasuke. What do you think?
Oh man, that's obviously the non-death match of the bunch. All the other ones are pretty much stacked with death match guys, but that one in particular, who'd ever guessed that was gonna happen? I know that seeing Tony Deppen and Kyle the Beast over there, that made me really happy, just because those are two guys that aren't primarily deathmatch guys, but they are recognizably GCW guys, and I'm glad to see that they get an opportunity to go over there as well. I know like Drew Chaos, I almost called him by his real name. Drew Chaos is going over there and stuff too, and there's a couple people that are going over there that it's just like, it's really cool to see them going along for the ride. But yeah, that match is gonna be nuts. Sasuke blew a lot of minds at TOS, and I think that him and Deppen will tear it down. I think Deppen's gonna get some heat from the Japanese crowd, and that's gonna be great because he's perfect for that. I think
Absolutely.
that match it's probably gonna be somewhat of the opener, and it's gonna get the crowd welcome to GCW, and that's what you want. That's gonna be great.
Absolutely, I agree. It's different. It's fun. Deppen, that's the thing when they bring these guys over, like Deppen and KTB. Those are like day one guys, and
Right.
it is really cool. It shows they take care of their guys, and that's like admirable in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think it'll be great. I think Deppen's going to get over big. I think Deppen's just got so much character for like that type of a guy. And as he says on Twitter, he quit his job. He's a full-time wrestler now, and I think this is a great way to kind of start that era off. So
I agree.
Let's go over the non-death matches because these fuckers are covered in death matches. Then also on 8/22, you got KTB versus Sekimoto. This was set up at the Jersey show, the Asbury Park show a couple weeks ago. Two big bruisers. That's all you can really say about it.
Oh yeah, that's going to be probably the strong styles type deal. I love KTB. I think he is great. He's a guy I wish did death matches, but he doesn't have to. While we're on that point, guys like Schlack and I don't know if Marcus Crane to a certain extent, but Schlack was saying something the other day in one of the groups about being pigeonholed into doing death matches. He's a guy, Schlack, I would like to see in a non-death match. That's kind of a random point. I know I'm going off track here, but I'd like to see him used in somewhat of a KTB role just because I know he's kind of older and he doesn't always need to be in a death match. You can put him in there with a guy like Eli Everfly. That's going to be cool. It's still Schlack. He's still a GCW guy. Like, that's what KTB, I think, has done. Because I think he did some death matches back, like, a couple years ago, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. But I know he was GCW champion there for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, KTB's a guy, it's funny, we were going through photos, preparing for a couple, just things that we needed, and we were going through photos, and I was seeing photos from KTB when he was wearing the leather skirt and the war paint and everything, and back then, I just didn't connect with KTB, because, I wanted to watch the death matches, and blah, 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 and then, I don't know what it was like a year and a half ago, he just changed his character up. He dropped the Kyle the Beast and just became KTB, and now he's just this bruiserweight, and I think, this is like the perfect opponent for him. And also, Sekimoto is a big star over there. He is a very big star over there. He's on like mainstream television. He's known as like he's a known bodybuilder. He's written books on bodybuilding. So this is going to be a high profile match for the company,
Yeah, that's going to be the hard hitting. They're going to beat the shit out of each other. That's pretty much as simply as you can put it. They're going to beat the hell out of each other, and they're going to do it in a different way than the other death matches that they're going to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the non-deathmatch stuff, and then we go right into the deathmatch. I mean, you have Jimmy Lloyd, G Raver, and Drew Parker against Ciclope Miedo and Violento Jack. Sounds right to me.
Oh man, that's gonna be. I'm just glad to see Ciclope and Miedo back in a ring. Violento Jack as well. Those guys are just, Violento obviously is over in Japan, and basically Los Macizos are kept out by, we'll just say, our president. He doesn't like people from Mexico, and it's just a shame. It's really good to see them back in there and being in there with the two six-man tags are, oh man, they're both stacked. But Jimmy Lloyd, Drew Parker, and G Raver are going to tear it down with those guys. There's no other way you can put it. There's such a vast amount of talent, and I'm in probably the minority in that I love tag team, six-man tag wrestling just because there's more people in the ring. And it's not like a four-man, four-way dance or anything like that where it's just a clusterfuck. They're going to probably, they're going to tag out. You're going to see a different style with or a different chemistry, different style with every pair that goes in the ring. I mean, G Raver and Ciclope. We've seen stuff like it. We've seen, like, that guy in particular, he's going to kill it with them. Jimmy Lloyd, he's going to kill it with any one of them. Drew Parker, he's going to kill it with any one of them. There's so much that match has in it that it's nuts. And Jack is just, oh man, he's going to slam the hell out of the smaller guys, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, you have all three of these guys, Raver, obviously, Parker, and Lloyd, they all do lucha, and you've got the Mexican guys. I mean, this is just a match made in heaven as a six-man. I think it's awesome, man. Then you have Schlatt, Crane, Eric Ryan against Kasai, Sakuda, and Sasaki. I made the comment on Twitter, I think. I was like, this is like a Fire Pro D fucking tournament match that I would have booked, playing my Dreamcast. Like, this is just like the perfect teams, So again, just blood and violence.
Oh God, that's gonna be the violent one. That might be the most violent match on the night. Crane's gonna be over there with something to prove. All of them are gonna be over there with something to prove. But I think in that particular match, because Marcus Crane is in there with Kasai, you saw him talking about it on Twitter. I'm sure he was talking about you're gonna notice me, senpai.
Yeah.
He is very motivated, and Schlack, of course, it's a dream come true. He's perfect for over there. Just in terms of he's that scary dude. They're going to look at him and they're going to be like, how often you see a guy like that in Japan? It's just going to be, again, the combination of people. Eric Ryan's going to go balls to the wall. Like, that American team is nuts. And then they're in there with Kasai and Sakuda, and oh man, there's going to be so much bloodshed in that matchup. Like, the other six-man's going to be kind of like a mixture of like the hybrid deathmatch style. And I'm not going to say that this one's going to be like hack and slash, but it's going to be bloody.
It's going to be bloody, yeah.
It's going to be violent. It's going to be violent, and it's going to be great stuff.
I would imagine it's going to be the difference between like light tubes and ladders versus panes of glass and knives and gusset plates. Like, that's how I kind of see the difference, between the two.
Right. I completely agree. It's going to be Marcus Crane. I think he's booked on night 2 as well. I just can't remember exactly. Yeah, he's in a tag team. Right. They're challenging Los Macizos for the titles, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be, he's going to go in there with something to prove. He's going to do something crazy with Kasai. If we get Kasai and Crane in the same ring, that's just going to be, that's the dream match that everybody wanted to happen that probably didn't happen, but it's still happening in one way. And, there's probably reasons for that. But it's going to be, he's going to go in there probably more motivated than we've ever seen him. And if there's anything that anybody, I think, has ever knocked Crane for, is just that he doesn't seem particularly motivated at times. Or like in the original Howl shows, he was killing it, and then he kind of like fell off. And he says that himself. It's going to be really cool to see him in particular in a motivated state, where guys like Schlack are just, They're just
I
there to
mean,
fuck shit up.
think about this, you know, after when Takeda was nearing the end of that fucking double title run, like he was posting on Twitter, he's like, I'm tired. He's like, I'm running full schedules for 2 companies. I'm doing main event death matches twice a month. He's like, and then, you know, think about Crane. I mean, when he was on those house shows, man, he was murdering himself every
Right,
month.
he was killing
Eventually,
himself.
yeah, man. I mean, eventually, it's gotta, you know, you gotta take a nap eventually, man. But
Right,
I'm
and that's
thinking,
kind of what I was saying
go on.
about like him and Schlack. Oh, I'm sorry, but it's like kind of what I was saying about him and Schlack, where every time you see him on a GCW card, it's a death match, and that's not necessarily like, oh, they shouldn't be a death match. That's their specialty, sure, but to prolong the longevity of these guys and consistency of their career, you got to have them in there with somebody because you know they can both do it. Crane, I don't think likes to wrestle non-death matches. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but how often you've seen Schlack in a non-death match? You know, like,
Yeah. And even then, it's always with like tables and doors and stuff.
Right. It's still hardcore in some aspect. I think that they both could do something without some form of insane violence, and it might help them prolong their career. And I think that's where they started out so hot and heavy. That's what everybody wants from them. Like you said, they're like the circus, the freak show. Everybody just wants to see them do this, and I don't think that's true. You know, I agree with what Schlack said the other day, and that I want to see them, in particular Schlack. I want to see Schlack in there with some lighter guys where he can just kind of throw them around and do like a Shane Mercer type deal.
Yeah.
You know, show that he can do some wrestling. He's been doing it long enough. Same with Crane. I know Crane can do. Crane's got, like, he's not necessarily the most technical person, but he has got a crazy moveset. And every time I watch him, he pulls something out that I'm just like, where the fuck did that come from? You know, like every time I watch him.
I always compare him to Sabu, where like, because
yeah,
if you ever watch Crane make a pinfall, I love it. He throws his arms in the air and he runs over like a cartoon character to get the pin. And
he does
like,
too. I love it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, he botches, he falls, but that's because his character he's a maniac. You know, like that's the point.
He's driven mad, and I love it.
Yeah. I'm thinking, just to go back to the match really quick, you know, I'm thinking we're going to see Crane versus Kasai. We're going to see Crane versus Sakuda. We're going to see Ryan versus these guys. We're going to see, you know, Kasai face off against Schlack. I mean, there's going to be a lot of moments where 2 dudes stare off and you're like, fuck, this is going to be a great 2 minutes. And then we're going to get another great 2 minutes. And, you know, like, we're going to have these
there's going to be a lot in that.
Yeah. And then the main event is going to be Takeda versus Alex Colon, rematch from NGI last year. I think best death match, top 3 death match of the year last year. And for, you know, as death match fans, that makes it the best match of the year, period. You know? Yeah,
I was actually talking about it. I'm not going to say I called it, but I was talking about it beforehand where I think it was Cologne got announced for NGI, and I was like, man, I really want to see Takeda versus Cologne too. I didn't even think of it being possibility in Japan. I don't know why, but I was like, I want to see it at NGI 4, and then sure enough, it's announced as the main event for night 1. And I was like, man, you know, because that's going to be interesting. I liked how Cologne was talking about it on Twitter. He said, or maybe it was Facebook, I don't remember, but he was talking about when you, because Cologne has grown so much in the last year that it's nuts. He put it this way. He said, last year it was you were the best and I was facing you. And now, Takeda, it's you're facing me and you're going to see what it's like to face the final boss in the video game. And it was, you know, I think he's totally right. I think he's probably the best in the world right now. And I could be wrong. You know, maybe it's still Takeda, but I don't know. I think that that's a really cool point, and there's still a lot that those guys can do that we didn't see in NGI just because they had to save some for the rest of the matches. Those 2 going balls to the wall, because I don't think Cologne's on night 2. Or Takeda, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, they're in a tag.
Oh, right.
They're in a tag.
Right,
we'll go over night 2 in a minute. I mean, all of these guys are on both nights, you know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect main event for night 1, you know. I just think it's going to be fucking tear the house down. How can it not, you know? And I know that...
Oh, yeah.
everyone's stoked. The only guys not on the card, I mean, we have. Never mind. There might be one more match. We do have a criminal on the loose. Invisible Stan is wanted by Interpol, and there's apparently flyers up in Tokyo to be to be scared of this criminal outlaw that might peek his head around for this show. So anyway,
so he'll
night
pop
2
in somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. He's got business. I mean, shit. If the Invisible Man is on the shows, so we got to be careful of these criminals, these scofflaws. Night 2. Oh, whoops. My thing is an old one. Whoops, my bad. So yeah, night 2, you got Deppen and KTB against Irie and Kikutaru. This is just going to be fun, great, hard hitting. KTB and Irie are going to face off. I think it should be fucking fun.
Right. Oh yeah, it's going to be a great opener. It's going to get the crowd popping again.
Yeah. And then we have Jimmy Lloyd against Drew Parker against Kuda, which if you think about it, this is probably like the 3 young breakout stars from all 3 regions, the UK, America, and then, the Japanese.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Drew Parker's kind of been making some noise this year. He's a guy who I haven't seen a whole lot of his stuff, but like every time I see him, he's flippy. He's not pulling any punches. He's taking all kinds of ankles. Yeah, doing that flip doing the moonsault over the ropes. Oh man. But yeah, he's I think that's gonna be crazy. Jimmy Lloyd's gonna go balls to the wall in that match. Drew Parker and Sakuda, they kind of always do, but they still got to go back to work in a couple days after that. But that's gonna be a crazy combination of people in there. There's the guy that can do the flips. There's Jimmy Lloyd who can do pretty much everything. He's grown a lot too. I was watching him, one of his old matches, I think earlier, and just to see how much, first of all, slimmer he is, and just more, he just looks more professional. He's got a little bit more of a character to him. He just looks a lot more well-rounded than he was back then. Yeah.
And then in 6-man, we got Cologne and Eric Ryan teaming up with Takeda, which I want to say really quickly. When I think about it, Takeda is, let me think for 1 minute, 1, 2, 3. If you include tournament matches, Takeda is like 5 or 6-1. Like, I mean, he's been in Japan. He came in for 2 deathmatch tournaments, and then he did 3 shows over WrestleMania weekend. He's like a GCW guy, and if you ever talk to him about, like, if you're ever able to kind of have a beer with him, he loves GCW. Like, he's like, that's, he tells me, he's like, that's my style company. He's like, I like a fast deathmatch. I like a crazy card. You know what I mean? And he loves GCW. I mean, he rocks that shirt when he's just walking around, all of that shit. So
right, it shows when he's in the ring too. He looks so happy. Like even looking at him in NGI with Cologne and everything, he just looks so happy to be there.
Yeah, he told me, he's like he likes the fans going nuts. He's like, I just love the American fans, the way they just go crazy. The Japanese fans, you have to build it up, and there's a way of doing it. Right. And he's like, no, I like a fast death match and crazy fans, So, but
he likes to feel the aura right off the bat instead of having to kind of build it up, because the Japanese fans are a little bit more subdued, a little bit more patient, where American fans are just like, yeah, let's get it. Especially GCW fans in particular. They're rabid.
Yeah, they're like, I've been drinking for 2 hours. Let's go.
Let's fucking do it.
Yeah. So yeah, you got Alex, Eric Ryan, and Takeda against Kodaka, Sasaki, and Violento Jack. Just 6 fucking great guys who are gonna tear it down.
Yeah, I forgot about that match. I won't even lie. I completely forgot about that match. That's gonna be balls to the wall too. I think it's funny that the 2 guys that are facing off in the main event on night 1 are on a team, and on night 2. That's kind of funny. But yeah, that's gonna be nuts. I wish Eric Ryan would have gotten a singles match. Same with kind of Schlack and Marcus Crane. At least I wish they would have gotten one. But I think they'll do just fine in what they're going to do. So,
well, in theory, this is part one. You know, like that's
right.
the thing. I mean, we can talk about it more after, but this is like they're come on. If you sell out 2 shows without even announcing a card, you're probably going to go back. You know,
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, but I mean, I agree. You know, but there's only so many. You know, it's tough. Just to keep on going through, you know, we've got Schlack and Crane challenging for the GCW tag titles against Miedo and Cyclope. I would assume the Hate Trash Disaster are going to bring the titles home.
You have to assume it. And you know, GCW has a pretty good thing about not being predictable, but not having your tag titles for a year, if not more. I think it's been a little bit more than a year. That's just not like, and that's cool that they're getting defended in like Freedoms and in Mexico and stuff like that. But you know, if there's no hope of bringing those guys back, you might as well get your titles back. Like I was thinking earlier, where's the GCW Extreme title? Doesn't PCO still have it or something like that? If I'm not mistaken.
PCO's got it. Yes, he does.
Yeah, and like it's gonna happen. They should beat them. If they don't, you're gonna be kind of like, people are gonna be scratching their heads. But you know, if there's 2 guys that should be tag team champions of GCW and have some gold there, it's Schlack and Crane. I mean, there's no other way you can put it. They're 2 guys that you put together. Like they kind of have like it doesn't matter if they're opponents, if they're tag teaming, if they're even just on the same card. Usually they're together in some form.
Yeah, I mean, they just fit. You know, they just fit perfect in that way. They're like
right.
Ren and Stimpy, Beavis and Butthead, Schlack and Crane.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I think they'll bring it home, but I think that's going to be, you know, that could possibly even steal night 2. Even, you know, Kasai Raver we'll get into in a minute. That's probably going to be the big one, but that could easily steal the night too, because Miedo and Cyclope are going to want to kill it.
Absolutely.
They're going to be super happy to be fighting some GCW guys again, because I think they really like that style too, and that, you know, you could just see it on Cyclope and Miedo. They just go balls to the wall. Like, I've been going through Miedo clips all friggin' day because I'm doing that highlight video, but he's just, every match, he's just right away, they're just right into it. And so it's going to be interesting. And I kind of wonder if that's how they'll work the matches over there, which they probably will. They'll probably bring a definite American flair to it. So,
absolutely. In non-deathmatch, you got Joey Janela against Great Sasuke, rematch from Spring Break 2. This is just, you know, Janela, the big star, gets to show off against, you know, one of his favorite opponents, and Sasuke the same thing. So this will just be great. You know, should be a lot of tables and ladders and chairs, I'm guessing.
Right, and yeah, that's going to be the one that's, I forgot Janela was there too for a little bit. He's not on night 1, so, but yeah, that's going to be the one where it's going to hype up the later matches, but I don't think it's going to surpass them. You know, it's like that match. I won't even call it a filler match because it's definitely not, but it's going to be interesting. And Janela's probably never been to Japan, I'd have to assume.
Nope.
So that's going to be pretty cool for him, and he's gonna play up the crowd, and hopefully they'll be happy to see him. And Sasuke is, of course, a legend wherever he goes, and I think that match will be pretty cool.
Yeah. And real quick, I just want to say, we'll get into it in a second, but, well, okay, we'll talk about it after this. And then you have G Raver against Kasai in the main event. Should be just fucking batshit crazy shit, you know?
Oh, it should be nuts. I'm glad G Raver's getting the opportunity too. He deserves it. Him and Cologne have been like the 2 standouts, and they're the guys that have been booked as almost defenders. Like, I won't even say gatekeepers, but that's kind of what they are. When you bring in the international guys, they want Cologne or they want Raver. You know, like Raver fought Kodaka and all that. And they're just the 2 guys that they resonate with that hybrid deathmatch style more than almost anybody else.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, you know, we forget about it, but you know, Raver went to the TOS finals. He didn't get to compete, but you know, he was supposed to be in those finals, you know. So I mean, it should be great. You know, the people are going to get a Kasai main event match, and you know, these are all people who have a connection to Game Changer Wrestling in some way. They aren't, you know, the only one who's not is Shigehiro Irie. Like, he's the only one who has no connection to the company. He was just you know, that was, you know, there's stuff going on there, but you know, I mean, he's a star to bring in, and it should be cool, but. So that's the card. The one thing I also want to go over really quick. So the talent is also going to be on tons of other stuff, and this is my favorite part of this whole thing. Is this is not 2 shows. You know, I'm going to list them off really fast, and then you can talk about it after. They're going to have bar parties in Shinjuku on the 23rd and the 26th. On the 23rd, it's Joey Janela and Marcus Crane. On the 26th, it's Marcus Crane and Eric Ryan. It's they're going to have... I should get the cards. I really should, but I'm not going to. But, well, should I just get the cards really quickly? It'll take me about 2 minutes. Not even that. It'll take me 30 seconds.
You can if you want, man. You're good.
On August 24th, I got Chinese internet here. It takes a minute. Gotta go up to my calendar here. Hey, they're doing a Bizarre versus 666 show. Good for them. I'm on the Big Japan website here. Where's the damn calendar? Here we go. Schedule. So on August 24th at Kuroken Hall, we have... Hold on. I almost got it here. Almost got it. Almost got it, guys. Almost got it. All right, here we go. So on August 24th at Kuroken Hall, you're going to have an 8-man that's going to be... whatever. It's going to be Sakuda and a GCW first rank. Oh, I clicked the wrong date. 24th Kuroken Hall. There we go. So yeah, so on the 24th at Kuroken Hall, you're going to have an 8-man tag. It's going to be Ito, Hoshino, Takeda, and one other guy who is not translating so quickly. Please hurry up. So Hoshino, Takeda, Ito, and I think Sakine. I'm still waiting for it to translate. And they're going to be taking on Ueki. I'm sorry, it's just going to be Ito, Takeda, Hoshino, and Ueki. They're going to take on Sakuda, Cologne, G-Raver, and Schlack. And real quick, Sakuda is like... he's a fan. I don't know how else to put it. My friend Taka, you know, he runs the Freebird store. He does articles and interviews, and you know, he tells a story that he first met Sakuda because Sakuda was buying CZW DVDs in 2014. I mean, he's a fan. When I went over and first met him, he was telling me, and this was like 2016. He was like, "Have you seen this Game Changer company? My God, I was getting DVDs of that." Like, he's a fan of Game Changer in a big way. So then on the 25th in Big Japan, they're going to Nagoya for Deathmania. They're going to have a 4-way with Sakuda against G-Raver, against Crane, against Jimmy Lloyd. That's going to be a big death match. Also on the 25th, you have Freedoms running Hiroshima. Joey Janela is working a tag match against the main roster. Then in the main event, you have Alex Colon and Schlack against Kasai and Takeda. Then
that match is nuts. That match is nuts. I'm just saying.
I'm going to that match. I wasn't gonna, but I was like, I gotta see Takeda versus Schlack. I gotta see this. Like, this is, I gotta see this.
That combination of those four is, I saw that and I was like, whoa, that's just, whoa, that's crazy.
And spoiler, this probably isn't gonna make tape. So if you want to see it, man, you got to go there live. Like, these small Freedom shows do not make tape usually. And it's gonna be light tubes and glass, man. And then it was announced on August 27th G Raver is going to be on Basara. Basara is owned by Isami Kodaka. It's going to be Raver against Kodaka in a hardcore match at Basara and Shinkiba on 8/27. It's fucking super sweet. These guys are getting noticed and getting more bookings.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was watching a Battleman Samurai TV, and they didn't specify, but, you know, my friend was telling me, he's like, Kasai, Takeda, and Fukumoto were on Samurai TV, and they were saying on 8/28 at Tokyo Deathmatch Carnival for Freedoms at Kurokan Hall, there's going to be GCW wrestlers. And they said there might be a lot of them. So this is GCW week. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, there's a lot of shit going on. So,
well, that's crazy that they're getting booked outside of just the GCW bookings too. I think that's really cool that a lot of people pounced on that, and BJW in particular. I know G Raver's super hyped to go over there. I think Cologne too. Like, I think he was talking about it. But yeah, they're all super hyped to be over there and to actually get to do it in front of like the Japanese promotion too. I think that's really cool for them.
Yeah. It really is just like a dream tour, and like we said, I mean, it's #1. If these guys go over and, you know, they rock it like I think they're gonna, hopefully this is like literally chapter 1, you know, of a very long book.
Right. Right,
So,
and you know, you gotta imagine that they'll go back there and they'll bring some more extra people. Like I can't think of anybody right offhand, but I know there was a couple people that I was surprised. Oh, for example, I know Gage. Everybody was all mad because Gage wasn't going over there, and I called that months ago. I'm like, he's got a criminal record. What do you mean? What, are they gonna smuggle him in? Like, I like Gage, don't get me wrong. I wish he would have gotten the opportunity, but as soon as they announced him, I was like, that might have some hiccups.
yeah, I mean, you know, there's legal, you know, they're doing it right. That's the best way to put it. I mean, they're doing it right. You know, look, I'm a teacher in a foreign country. You need a work visa. You know, like I see people get deported on the regular because they come over illegally and think they're not going to get caught. So they're doing things right. And some things just take longer than others. You know, it's not to say it's impossible, but some things happen and some things happen later. It's the best way to put it, you know?
Right.
And plus, you know, they need something for the next time. But a friend of mine was asking me, he's, you know, because GCW, they've recently lost, you know, Jungle Boy and Orange Cassidy and Joey Janela and Marco Stunt. They're all going to AEW. And he was like, you know, is that going to hurt GCW? And I was like, no, it's going to help them because it shows that GCW is the company to get noticed in.
Yeah.
You know,
and there's so many guys that are just there that can fill those spots. And I'm not saying those guys are necessarily replaceable. They're all very good in their own right and everything, but it leaves a door open for other guys to get noticed, and there's plenty of them that GCW books. Like, I was rewatching They Said It Couldn't Be Done because I'm supposed to review it, and basically I recorded an hour of me talking about this show, and then I realized that the wrong mic was hooked up.
Super.
So yeah, I have to redo it. I'd never used the program before, so when I did it and I redid it and I went to listen to it, and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I just talked to myself for an hour for nothing. But watching that show, there's just so many guys. Like Jungle Boy, you know, I think the argument can be made that he kind of got signed, not necessarily because of who his dad is. I think he's extremely talented, but he's not even close to the best high flyer in GCW by any means. Like, he was in a match with Facade and Teddy Hart, and I think Eli Everfly was in there too. But those guys in particular, I was just wowed. Like, I thought Facade was awesome. So, like, there's guys like that can easily kind of pop in there and get noticed next. And you got to wonder how AEW is going to be after, I mean, what, they start up in October basically on TV?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. I think they got plenty of guys that are just dying for that break, and especially people are going to, like you said, kill it more because GCW is where people are getting noticed from.
Well, not only that, it's where they're going to Japan. I mean, how many companies, how many American wrestling companies are sending people over there? Like, it's one thing when Noah books this one guy, but it's like, this is a company sending guys over, and they did it pretty, with, they sold out the building, so they're probably going to go back and everything like that. So it's like, if I want to go to Japan or I want to go to AEW, it's like, Impact kind of once in a while sends a guy over for a week to tour with Noah or something, and Ring of Honor, maybe they have a relationship with New Japan, kind of, and that's a gateway. But it's like, dude, if you're like an indie guy, GCW sending motherfuckers over. And if I'm Alex Zane or Blake Christensen or these kinds of guys, or I'm like a deathmatch fighter, of course, GCW is the place to be. So,
it's gonna be crazy. I'm interested to see where it's gonna go. That's for sure. That's as simply as I can put it. I'm really happy for them too. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. And GCW is the company to do it. They live up to their name. They changed the game. That's as simple as you can put it. They really are. Even in America, they're so vastly different from any other company that you're going to see.
Yeah. Well, cool. Let me run by one thing to you, and then we'll get out of here. This is my idea, and then you can tell me yours. So,
for sure,
GCW, in my opinion, they're kind of built on, like, I always call them the tape trading company. That's what they are. They run Jersey All-Pro tribute shows. They run, they're bringing back Teddy Hart. They're bringing back these fucking tape trading legends. They're the tape trading company. That's my opinion, right? That's what I think, and that's why I think they've really resonated. They're bringing back the Zandig style Combat Zone. They're bringing back this like tape trading era. The Headhunters and this and that shit.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I'm like, so if they go back again, they want to do it bigger. Maybe run a bigger building. Maybe run, I don't know, other cities, whatever. But it's like, what can they do to keep it different, to keep it to keep the fans wanting to come back? Because if you come back again and you run the same with the same 9 guys, there's a good chance some of these fans will be like, okay, I saw it, I think I'll skip this one, right? So it's like, what would you do to be different? Here's what I would do. This is just me talking out of my ass, but what if you could partner with like Big Japan to run a Kuroken Hall show and run a whole bunch of those fucking Big Japan goofy ass throwback death matches of like the circus death match and the fucking piranha death match and like that, who wouldn't want to see Sakuda versus Crane in a fucking piranha death match or something? You know what I mean?
Right. The Caribbean spider web.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I was thinking of. Like, man, I would love, like, that just screams game changer wrestling to me.
Yeah, they definitely filter in that nostalgia factor differently than everybody else, particularly on the spring break cards, but even in general. Like you said, they kind of bring back the CZW aura, but at the same time, they do it in such a way that it's very original. Like, I completely agree with what you said, that's basically, they throw some of that nostalgia in there to where the fans are like, oh man, this is going to be like Big Japan 10 or 14 years ago when they were in their heyday and they had all these people. They're running matches like that, and I think that they just do that better than anybody else. I mean, LA Park versus Masato Tanaka, stuff like that. I mean, even if I think if they go over there next time, I'm not going to say don't book your guys, but I'm like, maybe book a Japanese, an all Japanese match. Book some guys that people haven't seen in a while. Like, you got to wonder why Abdullah Kobayashi's not there. I mean, I'm sure he's probably expensive, but like somebody like that would be who I would reach out to next time, would be Kobayashi or somebody like that, and just put them in something where it's something crazy, or bring somebody over there that's just gonna really blow everybody's mind even more. Like, just keep them fresh, because GCW has a vast amount of talent. Like, for example, Orton Vite, I was kind of surprised that he wasn't over there. I think him being an Insane 8 and stuff like that, and he's from like Minnesota or some crazy thing like that. But yeah. I think that's how they could keep it fresh over there, is just do pretty much what they do in America, because I don't know that anybody really does that over there. You know, they're used to seeing the same kind of shows. I don't think it's necessarily going to be easy for them, but I don't think it's going to be that difficult for them to stand out.
Yeah. I think it is. So, yeah. As far as I know, last little bits, as far as I know, I mean, Smart Mark Video is going over. They're flying over their own video company, you know? Like,
I know, that's crazy.
No expenses pulled. So these are going to make tape. I don't know. I know, you know, just because I've been at the building, I know that Shinkiba doesn't have Wi-Fi. It's literally in a fishing warehouse. Literally. Shinkiba is literally a fishing warehouse that a guy bought and put a wrestling ring in it. So there's no Wi-Fi out there, so I really don't know if it'll be on Fight TV. I mean, it will eventually, but
it's
maybe
definitely been teased. It's definitely been teased, but you know, you got to wonder how much of that is just them like, hey, you're gonna get to see it one way or another, so be happy. Like,
yeah, I mean, it'll be on Smart Mark Video. It'll be on Fight, maybe on like a delay or something like that.
I think they're damn well gonna try. And if they can find any way for it to be on Fight, that they will, because the cards are so stacked. They're gonna sell. They're gonna sell on Fight, and GCW's got. I think that's one of the big things for their success right now too, is that they're on Fight. People are buying the shows literally twice. You know, what other company's really getting away with that? Even WWE can't do that anymore. Like, especially an indie company. I think that's just super cool. Like, that you can buy it on Fight and you get this, but then you can still go and buy it on Smart Mark in a couple weeks, and it's a fresher, adjusted copy. You know, like, I think they're the only company that really can do that.
Yeah, and it's a Blu-ray, and it's edited cleaner and all that type of stuff versus, you know, we
got
all
the clips at the end for you if you want to skip the match. And
yeah, I mean, we all watched TOD this year, and it looked like it was in a storm for some reason, you know?
Yeah.
So all right, well, Peter.
Yeah, the audio was terrible.
Yeah, whatever. The less said, the better. Well, Peter, thanks for, you know, hanging out. I mean, this was literally, I was just like, every day I get like 5 messages from people just asking all these questions, and, you know, I don't have the time for like doing a podcast or anything anymore. But I know, Peter, you know, you're trying to grow the channel, so I thought, let's talk for a little while.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to be the more informative group and page and everything. Like, we have the page you can share. There's exclusive stuff in the group, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. You know, I'm getting my own little team of people together, and we got, like, Drew helps out. I know Ryan helps out. Adam is pretty much brand new to our group, but he's been extremely helpful, and, you know, we got big things coming, which I won't spoil all of that, but I think it's pretty cool that, you know, I'm on Twitter posting and I'm getting retweets in Japan, like, all over the place. I think that's just super cool. I think what I like is people finding their way to the Facebook page, because I have those couple of big posts where the tournament updater, which I have to fix the picture for. I actually fixed it. I just haven't posted it yet. But you can find a tournament near you. You can find the company. You can find all that. You can find it right there at the point and click, right on the group and page. You know, that's what we want. We want people to be informed as much as they can. I don't want to, and that's no knock on GCW or anything, I don't want to just cover GCW. I want to cover, you know, Crimson Crown. Like, I'm in contact with people out there tonight that are going to be trying to get me as up to date and up to the minute results as I can. We're just trying to get everybody a little bit of spotlight. If we can get even, you know, if we can get 10, 15 people to go and turn that on, I'm happy with that. You know, I want people to know who these guys are that they've never heard of, and to keep an eye out on these companies that, even though they're not in a hotbed, that they're still doing death matches, extreme wrestling. Like, we have companies from Australia and the UK in particular. The UK, that NCW promotion is really cool. Nick Horatio Cobb, he's been super cool, and the Deathmatch Outlaws have been really helpful. So it's just, we're kind of trying to cover it on all areas. not just America. You know, we want to cover Mexico, we want to cover Japan, we want to cover it all as long as we can.
Mm-hmm. Sounds perfect. Well, hey man, if people are listening, it's like, what's your Twitter and shit?
It's Deathmatch E on Twitter. It's Facebook/Deathmatch Empire, Facebook/groups Deathmatch Empire, YouTube's Deathmatch Empire. It's luckily I got pretty lucky with the name and that it's pretty unique and that it stands out, and it doesn't really sound like anything else. It doesn't sound like any other deathmatch group or anything like that. When you hear it, it's synonymous with us, and I like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool, man. Thanks for, and I'm INTL Wrestling. Probably moving to Japan in the next 9 months or so. So,
are you really? That's cool.
Yeah, I'm biting the bullet, man. Like, I'll just break it down for people real quick. Like, China is like high pay, low cost. Japan is like medium pay, high cost. So,
yep.
That's why I've always dragged my feet on moving to Japan, just because it's going to be, it's a money situation. But with these GCW shows and, the network I've built, I think I owe it to myself to, move over there. And, I've been in China for 6 years. I wouldn't mind giving Japan a shot for a while. And it's the best place to be for wrestling, in my opinion.
Give it the old college try. You're going to be teaching English over there, you think, too?
Well, I'm a science teacher now, but it's just English teaching. No, it's English teaching. It's just with a different book. But yeah, basically.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that's cool. I've heard of a couple people that went over there and did that, and it seems like it's one of those things you either love it or you hate it. So, and you've seemed to like it in other places, so hopefully you like it there too.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I'm finishing up with, this is inside baseball, and if nobody cares, but if anybody wants to, I know a couple, I know a couple listeners are, toying with like doing the teaching abroad thing, but I'm getting a teaching license, which is it's very expensive, it's very time consuming, it's very strenuous. Like every day I have to do a lot of work for it, but once you get that teaching license, you can work in private academies, and you can work in places where you can make the money to facilitate a life of watching wrestling 3 nights a week and getting drunk a lot. So
right, well there you go.
That's the X factor that put me over over the edge and said, okay, let's give this a shot. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, man, and I really hope you enjoy it and keep me updated.
For sure. So all right, guys.